that's where we're heading. So just to show you for a second that we can actually get there in my system. Well, unfortunately, the way we've been doing things in the fly in the past is to take flies, infect them with the pathogen, the flies die. That's great. But it doesn't let us look at recovery at all. So we realize that, and we don't really have any pathogens that the fly recovers from reproducibly. So what we started doing is taking flies that would have this route, treating them with antibiotics to bring them back to this, and then comparing the two. And so I find this curve really fascinating, although I guess it's kind of obvious. If you take flies, give them listeria infection, they drop dead. If you don't give them a listeria infection, they live a lot longer. If you give them antibiotics halfway between the two, they switch over here, and then they act like they were never infected. And I suppose that's a good thing, because you don't want to have lasting effects of having the infection, and this is why antibiotics work, but it means that this is likely to be a system that we can use to take things apart. We can show that the antibiotic treatment causes the bacteria to be cleared from the flies, so we can get things back to normal. And we started looking at phase curves. This is a little trivial one. It's looking at antimicrobial peptide expression. But you take the fly, you would infect it, you get a lot of bacteria, and then you end up with sort of a constant level of antimicrobial peptide when the fly is sick. And eventually it will die without the antimicrobial peptide ever coming back down. If you treat it with antibiotics, you end up with an initial pulse of antimicrobial peptide, and then as you clear, you get this linear reduction in antimicrobial peptide production as the bacteria are cleared. So we can see that we're going to be able to see some of these relationships. And we'll start taking this apart first in the fly, but we'd also like to do this in the mouse. And I'm wondering if people out there already have data where they've looked at things in detail, because there are a number of things you can do just by taking data you have already, plotting and looking at the shape of the curves. So to sum up, I'll just say we're interested now in taking apart these curves at a much higher level of detail than we've had before, and to be able to understand why you get bifurcations between these curves, why you get curve 1 instead of curve 2, and how can we switch these back and forth. And to thank the people in the lab. Janelle's the person who did most of the work on tolerance in my lab over the past couple of years. She's now a postdoc in Russell Vance's lab. This is the gang that's currently working in my lab. And I have more friends than this, but Andrew and Lars have been really helpful in giving me some data to try things out on. So, thanks.
Okay, so time for a quick question or two. Just so you know, lunch is down the hall in Honors B. So it's just through the double doors here across the way. And help yourself. We'll try to get back together maybe 5 minutes after, just to get a little bit more time for lunch.
It's a comment that I think I've disproved myself. But I was thinking about worms in those diagrams. And I think worms almost don't work because they don't replicate within the host particularly, and the parasite and the host doesn't get rid of them, so they would just be a line across. That might be new infections you could do with microbe number, which the immune response.
Yeah, I was doing this just within one host.
But the microbe number could be new worms,
right.
New infections, so that would work actually. But perhaps.
Right, now that's a different. There are others I left off here. And every time I give a talk, something comes up with a new one. The bobtail squid is a beautiful one. It has this light-emitting organ that takes in Vibrio harvii, and so it actually is a cycle where daily it goes around in a circle like this. So, but I had to cross lines to do that, so I didn't cross it. Okay, what's the line?
Gary, do you think you may have mentioned that already? If you take a given course and a given pathogen, these are curves for different pathogens, right?
Yes.
If you take a given course and a given pathogen and you start mutating some relevant genes, do you think the curves will also change according to the same patterns?
Yeah, I think we have data on that already, right? So in the fly, if I take a fly and inject a fly with E. coli, I get this curve. But if I were to do it in an IND mutant, I would get this curve. So we know that when we've got serious immunopathologies, we can get shifts like this. So one of the things I'd like to do, now that I know how to make these curves, and now that I know I should gather the data through the full time course like this, is to go back with mutants and try to pick off some of the easy ones where we can get these bifurcations and look at it that way. But right now it's kind of it's a solution waiting for a problem. So this is easy. You know, we already know you get sick and die or you survive. So what I'd really like to look at are shifts like, I think I have this slide here, where you get shifts that you weren't expecting. So, so for example, what you want to do ideally in an infection is to treat so that you get this kind of movement here where you just shrink the thing down. I'm wondering, are there situations where you get shifts that go like this? So this, you know, this would turn you into Typhoid Mary, but in the hospital, it might be a useful thing to be Typhoid Mary for a while. It would squish you up in this way. And alternatively, you can squish the thing over like this. And what I'd really like to know is, do we have any treatments that we use that get rid of microbes but don't actually increase your health much? So I'm looking for surprises in the data and trying to find. So if anyone has surprises that they think we might find, it would be good to go and look at them in this way.
Okay, let's adjourn for lunch and be back maybe 5 after 1. Thanks.